Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Whole Health of Rob Carney podcast. I'm joined by the boys of Raw Milk and Deadlifts. They're back again. We had a great episode. I think it was probably over 6 months ago at this point. We got Tommy Wheatley and Luke Kidwell joining us today. So we're back to talk about all things raw milk and deadlifts because the two are now synonymous. They have to go hand in hand together. And I love wearing my hat when I go to pick up my raw milk. Get some good smiles, get some comments. So, gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to dive into some stuff that we were just chatting before we hit record here, and talking about fitness, talking about resilience, talking about moving with the seasons, real health. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and it's easy to get caught up in the challenge of all the conflicting information. So I just want to start off and ask how you boys have been doing. I see you guys have been really getting on your fitness games. You guys are getting those muscles growing there. So what's been the latest for you guys over the past 6-8 months, however long it's been?
Well, as of recently, sun's poking out a little bit, working out outside, that's a freaking passion of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when it's, snowy, rainy, cold, 30, 20 degrees, and you have to work out inside, it's brutal. But once you get back outside, it almost makes it worth it, just how good that feels. Be back outside, lifting weights in the grass, barefoot, nothing better.
100%. Yeah. And I think a lot of the things that we have been focusing on are just leaning into those principles that more and more are proving to be the everlasting knowledge, right? Not getting swept up in the trends, not getting swept up in, hey, we're part of this diet team. Hey, we're part of this workout team. But saying, what's nature about, right? Eating close to nature, surviving close to nature, especially in pertaining to the seasons, doing what the human body is supposed to do, which is move itself properly, as well as move heavy objects outside of your own body weight properly. So just kind of leaning into the seclusion of nature on the farm a little bit, that sometimes can seem like a downside, but has a lot of blessings in it too. It gives you a lot of time to think, a lot of time to sit by the fire, a lot of times to ponder and all that good stuff. So that's kind of been our theme for the winter.
Right on, brother. So, this kind of leads me into the first one to dive into is getting in tune with our health as regards to nature. And I think that's a big thing that is easy to get away from when we have things like laptops, we have things like computers, we have a lot of distractions, we have processed foods that are really tasty and sweet and salty and all these delicious flavors. And then, like we're saying, there's a lot of, conflicting information. And I always share the story of when it comes to, you guys mentioned the word diet. There was a phase where we were told eggs are bad for you. And then we were told, oh, egg whites are good for you. And then we said, oh, no, eggs are bad for you. And so, oh, wait, eggs are good for you again. And then it would just this back and forth. And I always tell people, the farmers were just eating eggs the whole time. The farmers never stopped eating eggs because some person on the television said, oh, eggs are bad. They eat the eggs and they feel better. So the way, like you said, is getting reconnected with nature. I think it's a great way to live off as a general principle. And obviously there's times where technology has its great advances like we're doing right now. If we didn't have modern technology, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't even know each other if we didn't have modern technology. So that's pretty cool. So if we can find the balance of the two and things like, having things like creatine and protein powders and amino acids and having certain supplements are great. But as a general rule of thumb, I always say, hey, how can we mimic nature? I think that's something I really appreciate about what you guys do. So I'd love to just kind of dive into your philosophies as it relates to movement, as it relates to nutrition, and just kind of living with nature. I know I want to go into the hillbilly sauna too.
Yeah.
Well, I think you touched a great point, right? That the farmers just ate the eggs, or the farmers just drank the milk, or the farmers just ate the meat. And they almost didn't know it. They didn't know enough to even ask the question to dissect the yolk from the white and to be like, wow, the egg white has this toxin in it that's like a defense mechanism, and the egg white doesn't want to be eaten, so like it's going to poison you when you eat it. It's kind of like that horseshoe theory of intelligence, right? That you're always seeing. You have like maybe the simple farmer who's like, eggs are good. Then you have this person who is talking about all of that.
Right, they know just enough to be ignorant on the subject, if that makes sense.
And they know just enough to know they're not some good old boy farmer, so I must be smarter than him. And then you get back down and you realize Why would you separate a whole food that was made for a specific purpose, for a specific reason in nature? And you can do that with milk too. Why would you pasteurize the milk, kill off all these enzymes, then maybe throw artificial lactase, which of course is the enzyme that digests the lactose, put that back in there, or with the plant-based milks, right? Concoct something that really doesn't.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's a Franken food. I've heard thrown around on social media. And then, let's throw in all these vitamins and stuff that were already in milk naturally and try to tell people it's healthier. And I think sometimes human beings are too smart or too educated for their own good. Not even
Educated,
smart.
that's it.
We forget that education can really dumb us down and pull
Right.
us away from the foundations of
I want
nature.
to dive in real quick on the topic of plant milks and cow milk, because I think that's something that when I first made the shift from non-organic pasteurized milk to plant milk, I did feel better but I was also drinking organic plant milk. I was drinking like organic almond milk, organic flax milk, some of these higher quality plant milks. But then when I went from shifting from those to high quality raw organic cow's milk, I can't go back to these plant milks and I think that's a big distinction that people say, plant milk is better than milk. Yes, if you're talking about non-organic, crappy made pasteurized milk, you're 100% right.
Sure.
But you can also take it to the next level, which is the raw, unpasteurized quality milk. And so I just want to throw that in there because I think there is a misconception when people say, raw milk is better than plant milks. Yes, but quality definitely matters.
Yeah, we both went through that same journey of, the crappy milk to the plant milks to the raw milk. And it's funny, the farmers, they were drinking the raw milk the whole time. Let's kind of go back to that. And I would totally suggest someone drink organic almond milk over pasteurized cow's milk all day.
Or a lot of times, look, we're obviously pro raw milk people, but we get some people just don't like it, just don't want to drink it. They just want to drink the plant. I don't even want to call them milks, the plant drink alternatives. And if you're going to do that, even the best option is to almost do the raw milk equivalent of it, which is to make your own. Because what we realized, we were also all about the organic almond milks, cashew milks, oat milks, but even the organic ones all have like xanthan gum,
Yes,
like
they do.
hard gum, these anti-thickening agents. A lot of them are derived from corn or other places, and you can avoid that if you make your own. So even though we're not out here wearing almond milk t-shirts, if you're gonna do it, at least put the effort in, preferably to either buy the most quality stuff you can in the store, or the best option is going to be make it yourself, blend it in water, do your own concoction, because I don't know if I've ever come across even an organic plant milk that doesn't have some type of weird anti-thickening agent with it.
Right. You're spot on. And it's funny because when I look at a lot of these plant milks, most of them have at least 8 ingredients. Like, it's not like it's just almonds and water. Like, there's almonds, water, and all these other things you're talking about. And so that's really important to notice that there's different layers to this. And of course, there are going to be some people that maybe they actually do not do well with raw milk. And so there's always exceptions to every rule. But generally speaking, a lot of people that believe they have lactose intolerance or some sort of dairy intolerance is oftentimes because they're eating this pasteurized non-organic, which has the lactase burned out from the pasteurization process. So I think really what it comes down to is getting back to nature, but I don't want to get too far off the milk topic. I want to get back to you guys' philosophy around, just natural ways of being healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the raw milk thing, that's, people have been consuming raw milk for how many thousands of years. I think at this point, it's safe to say, consuming raw milk is, pretty damn natural.
And also, even if you look at another kind of funny thing that we come across is a lot of, I'll say vegans, just because they tend to be the group that most often vilifies milk. There's a lot of other people that even eat meat who will still vilify milk. But on average, like when we get messages or comments from people who are really hating on milk, they're vegans. And the funny thing is, you notice kind of the indoctrination a little bit where they're not even taught about raw milk and the difference of raw milk. They only think that the only milk that exists really is mass-produced milk. And they'll list a long list of hey, you guys, what you're preaching is bad for health because it causes mucus, it causes inflammation, it causes digestive problems, it causes all these things. And it's really ironic because in a lot of ways, they prove our point. We're like, you're absolutely right. The milk that you're referring to does. And we're not going to dispute that for a second. That's why we don't promote pasteurized milk in any capacity. We don't promote milk that comes from these massive farms where it's completely disconnected from nature and the cows are standing and living in their own feces. But it's so funny because you see the documentaries that they watch and the blogs that they read. It's almost like they hide the reality that there's actual small farms that are doing it right out there. And they want to convince these people that the only place animal products come from is from these massive factory farms with smokestacks and stuff. And it's almost like they don't even know what you're talking about when you mention raw milk.
And the same thing goes with meat. You know, there's a big vilification of meat right now, and it's the same thing. That's what Joel Salatin says all the time. Is exactly what he said. You're right. All those things are true. It is terrible for the environment. It is terrible for your health. But this is when you're looking at an unsustainable model, the model of factory farmed animals. Yes, that's terrible for the animals. They're being imprisoned. They're being tortured. And we are consuming a stressed out, unhealthy animal, which, yes, it's going to cause dis-ease in our body. And yes, it's terrible for the environment because we just have these sludges of their crap, which is usually used for manure in a healthy environment. But like you said, that is looking at the worst case scenario. But we actually break it down and look at a small organic farm, let's say permaculture, let's say regenerative farm. Those are actually some of the best things for our planet and for our health are these animal-based products when raised in the right environment. So it really comes down to which model are you looking at? Are you looking at the model that is clearly flawed, or are you looking at a holistic, sustainable model?
Yeah, and they're looking at those giant farms, and they're trying to make that model sustainable, tweak this model. It's never going to be sustainable. And they're trying to replace, this terrible, terrible system of farming that we've got in agriculture and trying to replace it with something else that's going to reach the scale the same. And the scale is the problem. The scale, trying to feed that people out of one concentrated spot. I don't care if it's almond milk or it's beef, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
And the style of farming we're talking about, small local farms, manure is a tool instead of a nuisance.
Yeah.
Like North Carolina's hog country, and they've got giant hog farms where they've got giant manure lagoons, and their solution to those things is wait until a hurricane comes through, throws that manure all across the state, and now you got more room for more manure. But over in Asia, Korea, Japan, China, well, they've been farming that land for 40,000 years. And they're doing, they're doing well. Actually, they're starting to adopt some of our practices, and it's going, it's not going well for them. But that just shows you, that whole part of the world shows you that agriculture and livestock agriculture, it is sustainable. You just have to do it right. You can't just do it. You can't concentrate it all in one spot and try to feed the whole country out of, I think, 3 farms.
Right.
3 companies that own the farms.
And to your point is that when we switch the small scale farms as well, it's better for the economy. It's better for small businesses. It's better for the individual. Whereas the large scale corporation, like you said, the model does not work. That's we have enough data at this point. We have enough experience to show the large scale model where we have 6 farms in California shipping out to the entire United States does not work. And that's why a lot of times you get to the store and the food's all wilted when you're looking at veggies. And so again, whole nother rabbit hole.
It works briefly, but you're redlining the system. You can't take your car, put it full throttle and say, oh yeah, I can drive the thing for, 30 years like this. No, you're going to have a very short lifespan of the car. It's going to be damn effective. You're going to get far. Don't get me wrong, but you're tearing everything out. Bolts are flying, spark plugs are flying, wheels are falling off. And that's where we're at right now in our system of agriculture. We're at the end. This is not going to work.
And I think too, it's fascinating. We were on an Instagram Live earlier today and we touched on it, how even fellow raw dairy farmers are too bought into that model. We have had raw dairy farmers, people who make a living selling raw dairy, defend pasteurization and the pasteurization model to us. And their logic is, guys, you can't put down pasteurization. There's a time and a place for it. And the time and place that they always cite is if it's milk being shipped long distances and it's coming from an unhealthy animal and an unhealthy farm, then you need pasteurization. And it's actually the case is no, you don't need to be consuming any food or deriving any of your food from an unhealthy animal that is being shipped from a long way. That's just putting a Band-Aid on it. You're still following, like you said, the broken model, but trying to use, local regen logic. You have to change the whole thing if you want to use this good regenerative agriculture logic. And that's what we tell people is we do believe there's never a time and place to pasteurize. The reason being is because if you're talking about ideal health, both for the person who's eating it, for the animals, and for the planet, there's never a time and place to consume toxic food from a extremely unhealthy animal on the other side of the country or other side of the world. You can't convince me that that is ever going to be ideal for anyone. So why are we still sitting here talking about it, defending it? No, instead we should say, how can we get back to where local communities are close to their food? The animals are thriving, the land is thriving, the soil is thriving. That's a conversation that needs to be had, not people who defend these old school practices that have proven to be ineffective. That's not going to get us very far, and it's going to get us nowhere quick.
And it comes back to, we need to get back to nature. Nature is local. Nature is in its own small ecosystems. We have all these little micro systems in our country. You can look at northern Maine and you look at Southern California. Those are two very different systems. Those are two very different environments, and the animals, the plants are adapting to those environments. And that's a big travel hack. I remember learning when I went to Asia was saying, find some raw yogurt as soon as you get to a new place, you're going to get those local probiotics, the things that come from their soil that help with your immune system when you first get there. So that was whenever I went to a new country, a new area of a country, it was, hey, let me find some good yogurt that can get some of those probiotics in me. So that, kind of coming back to where we started with this conversation is getting in touch with nature and our health with that. And part of that is being in touch with the seasons. So I know you guys are a big proponent of kind of working with the seasons in terms of optimizing your health. So I'd love to just open the floor for you guys to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seasonal creatures. Humans are seasonal creatures. And one thing I was thinking about the other day was honey. When you have honey in the spring, that always fascinated people who had really bad allergies. It's like I just always thought it was weird, even as a little kid, that you'd be allergic to grass or you'd be allergic to outside. Mm-hmm. That always struck me as weird. But if you have honey, what you're doing is introducing a little bit of that through the bees. They go around to every single plant, pollen, and when you introduce a little bit of that, your body, builds up against that, and you can go outside without, you see, God, I feel bad for kids too, especially when, they eat Frosted Flakes and, Oreos, Cheerios, whatever. They go outside and, their eyes puff up,
Mm-hmm.
It's snot coming out, and their friends are playing outside and they have to be trapped inside because they're allergic to outdoors.
Right.
Something is terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And an 8-year-old can't play outside.
And they'll be told that outside is the problem. Pollen is the problem.
Yeah.
I grew up, I was told I was allergic to pollen.
Yep.
I always had an EpiPen with me. I always had an inhaler. How backwards was that, right? The pollen is not out to get you, and all these things. But, and especially with the seasons, take wintertime, for example, right? Which obviously we're in right now. We realize it's just so fascinating that people, especially during wintertime, are really at war with that season, meaning they try to resist it as much as possible, spend as little time outside as possible, right? The average winter activity is artificially heat your house, maybe not even with a fire, but with a bunch of electrical heating, which not everyone has access to do a fire. We get that. But to be in this kind of artificial heated box, sprint out to your car, covered up in a huge coat, start up your car, get the heat going, sprint into your office, warm up. So people are just fighting nature so much. And what we really try to do, and it's especially this past year, try to be very conscious of, is not hiding from nature, not fighting it so much, and understanding that each season has unique gifts that it has to offer. And one of the ones that winter does have to offer is, of course, the benefit of the cold, which is really healthy. And some people dedicate their whole lives to that subject alone, health benefits of the cold. And to realize, a lot of people talk about, we don't get as much sun in the winter. And of course, the days are shorter, especially if you're up near where you are. That's a fact. But a big reason people don't get enough sun isn't because the sun is not out during the winter. It's because they hide from it all winter. And that's why it started off as a joke, but we really are like, hey, we're going to try to like get as tan as we can during the winter. Not so much to be tan, but it means if that's our focus, we're going to force ourselves to get out and just eat up as much sun as we can and use that cold, that discomfort as an opportunity to not devolve during the winter months, which most people do.
Right. And, to that point, like you're saying about the transition into spring and in the winter time, is that most of us are avoiding the cold. And this is one thing, at the Ice and Iron events that we tell people is it doesn't hurt. It's just cold. And I
Yep.
think that we associate discomfort with pain, but the cold doesn't hurt. Yeah, maybe if you get frostbite, but we're not saying get to the point where your fingers are freezing off, but
Sure.
it doesn't hurt. It's just cold. And
Mhm.
so we can, if we go outside actively, and for me, it's just going for a walk every single day. I go for one walk every single day. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk, maybe it's a 45-minute walk, maybe somewhere in between. But the intention is just to get outside every single day and breathe. Because
Yep.
especially when it's like 7 degrees outside and it's like
Yeah.
8 in the morning and I'm going for a walk and my nose is like freezing up as I'm trying to breathe out of my nose. And it's just it does suck, but it's
Mhm.
also building that resilience, which is something I want to dive into next. But part of that, I have a theory that a lot of people that get these spring allergies is one, the pollen does not affect us if we're a healthy body. I used to, same thing. I used to be under the assumption I had allergies to pollen. As my health has improved, I don't have issues with pollen anymore.
Yep.
So I think it's, it's a symptom of already being inflamed. Then you add pollen in there, and now an inflamed body reacts even more to that. But in a healthy body, it's not going to do much, in my personal opinion. That's my theory. I think part of it also is we've been so, like you're saying, locked up inside that all of a sudden we go from inside to outside, and our body's trying to adapt and adjust because it has had this giant bubble period where we've been locking ourselves inside. And now it's just a giant transition that is trying to readapt to nature again, and all the bacteria and like good bacteria, the things that are creating our microbiome. There's just a lot of inputs going in that our body's been neglecting. So that's like, you guys are talking about getting out of the sun every day. For me, I just say go for a walk every day, even if it's 5 minutes, just getting outside every single day, regardless of the weather. And I like to make a game out of it. It's like, hey, this sucks so much. Let's see how long I can last, because this is not going to be fun. I know that. So let's see how long I can last out here.
An interesting point that you brought up too, about some of that is, for example, I actually lost my train of thought completely. I had something that I was going to say, but pretty much what I was going to say is that you can't deny the fact that in winter things slow down, animals slow down, a lot of animals hibernate. But what we forget as humans is if we were meant to really hibernate, we would. Obviously, we're not. Yet people's activity levels almost mimics that of a hibernating animal, right? And I think we have to remember there's a good balance to where, you have to recognize it might be really cold outside. So your activity level probably won't be exactly the same as if it's in the middle of summer. But also don't trick ourselves into thinking, hey, the bears hibernate, so I can just take off 4 months too. It's not a big deal. No, we're not designed to fall asleep and do nothing for 4 months. So doing stuff like you're talking about is perfect. Just getting out there and actually engaging with it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our wintertime traditions have kind of been either lost or replaced or hijacked, whatever the term you want to use is. People often refer to winter as, flu season. That's when that's when everyone gets sick because they're out in the sun. But if our old tradition would be sitting by the fire, drinking bone broth, or you're eating a lot of soups, and that's got a lot of collagen. That's gonna build resiliency. But it's kind of been hijacked to now. So going into winter, you've got Halloween, which is a holiday where everyone just eats a bunch of candy, processed candy, and then Thanksgiving and Christmas, you got those back to back. And most people around the holidays, they kind of let themselves loose, and they will drink, drink a lot of alcohol, eat a lot of crappy foods, and then we're supposed to just say, "Oh no, it's wintertime. That's when everyone gets sick."
Yep.
It's like, So what we're doing has nothing. There's no factor. Me eating a bunch of candy, now a bunch of alcohol, and now I'm getting sick, and now I'm not going outside, testing myself, building resiliency. I don't. That's not a coincidence to me that we
I
have
100% agree.
trash food and then we get sick.
And I think that's pretty clear as well. Like we're talking about eating with the seasons, that traditionally we think of what we would be eating in winter. Probably not high sugary foods, probably more things focused on fats and proteins, more of the meats, like you're saying, the soups, the broths, these things that we would have access to. Because if we, had an animal, that's something we're going to have access to in the winter. Where I notice I do not consume nearly as much vegetables or fruits in the winter as I do in the summer. My body utilizes more fruits, more sugar when I'm outside, I'm active, I'm moving around a lot more in the summer. So my diet changes as the seasons go about. And I think that's something to be very mindful of, as well as you're talking about having a lot of sweets, which are sugar, carbohydrates, processed, all these things. And then you couple that with the changing season, with an unresilient body, with an inflamed body, with now going inside all the time. And yes, of course, people are going to get sick. It's kind of a clear trend when you look at it that way.
Yeah. And in the springtime, when, now you're out in the sun more. And then, miraculously, what starts growing outside? Fruits, berries, and that's going to alkalize your body, make you more resilient to the sun, or adapt to the sun. I don't want to say resilient to the sun. When we adapt to the sun, alkalize your blood, so you're not going to be so inflamed and more prone to sunburn. And so spring gives you the gifts you need once the sun starts coming back out.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's moving with nature is really what that comes down to. So, I think that's something that we can really learn lessons of. And that's what I think is really important for people that maybe don't grow their own food or feel a bit disconnected from nature. That's why I'm a big proponent of just growing something. Like if you just grow something, I don't care if it's one pot of cilantro. That's all. I don't know why cilantro is always the example I use. Lettuce or spinach or tomato, whatever. Just grow something, because you will realize when this thing grows, when the fruit is ready or the vegetable is ready, this is probably the best time to eat that food, because this is the way nature has designed it. And we can go with the eating cycle throughout the way nature's supposed to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because people are always asking, right? And this is just the fact of the health community. What's the best diet? How should I eat? What's the best diet? As if there's one diet that everyone should eat all the time. And obviously that's not the case. However, we feel a diet that probably works for most of the people most of the time is going to be eating in accordance with the seasons wherever you are. Of course, there might be special circumstances where you need to adjust that or shift to that. But for most people in an environment, first of all, like we've been talking about this whole time, expose yourself to that environment so your body actually has a reason to adapt and recognize that it's winter. And then eat what would generally be available in that area. And that's pretty simple and stupid way to look at how you should eat, instead of, a great example you say, let's say I'm up in Maine and it's the dead of winter, I'm going to be a raw vegan. Our opinion, probably not the best diet for most people in the dead of winter in Maine to be a raw vegan.
Better than the same American diet, but if you're trying to optimize, not
exactly. And I did one time 30 days of keto down in Florida. It was winter time, but it was Florida, so it wasn't winter. And I did not enjoy it one bit. Not because the fats were bad, the meat was, or anything, but in a tropical environment, slamming massive amounts of heavy meat and cream all day or whatever is just, you could feel you're playing tug of war with nature. And most of the time, that's not a fight that you should play. And it's definitely not a fight that you're going to win.
And just kind of building off that, that's the big thing I always am working with clients on. It's a combination of working with the seasons and also ancestrally. Where's your ancestors from? Because we've adapted over tens of thousands of years to be able to, consume these foods to a certain degree. So, when I was in Southeast Asia, they're very close to the equator in Sri Lanka. They have access to fruit and veggies year round. So most of the people there are plant-based. They eat meat. Absolutely. They eat fish. They eat all these animal foods as well, but they're primarily plant-based because they are near the equator, like you said, in a tropical environment. That's the food that naturally grows there in abundance. So to them, like you're saying, if they're going keto, that's probably not the best move for them. However, like you're saying, somebody maybe in northern Maine, maybe keto makes more sense in the winter because that's what they're, more of those fats and proteins. Again, a lot of these other factors are lifestyle, What are you doing for exercise routine? Are you sedentary? There's so many other factors, but as a general rule of thumb, I like to tell people, like you said, let's look at nature. What is in season right now? And where are our
Yep.
ancestors from? Because that's probably where our genetics have adapted to some degree. For me being European, German, Irish, English, French, like having a little bit of all that in my body. When I was in Ireland, I was eating a lot of, meat and potatoes. I was doing pretty well for myself. So,
Yeah.
so
Nothing wrong with that diet.
Yeah.
not at all. So I want to just kind of transition a little bit here to on the topic of raw milk. I'm going to get back to that because it's crazy how fast that these episodes we've been chatting for a little while already. But I want to make sure we hit the main topic at hand here with raw milk.
Yeah.
And I want to say that this, like we said about the plant milks, I think this is definitely changed my perspective on milk when I started learning about raw milk a few years ago and when I started engaging in it. And I remember taking a course with Paul Chek, and it was specifically on the gut. And it's talking about that raw goat's milk is the closest match to the human microbiome. That's a great source of a whole food probiotic. I know in the last episode, we touched on some of the differences between sheep's milk, goat's milk, and cow's milk. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I will put the link down in the description box here to check that out. But I want to get on the topic of how do you guys use raw milk? So I don't think that's something we dove into last time. I think we talked about the benefits of raw milk quite a bit, but when do you use it? Do you break the fast with it? Do you use it pre-workout, post-workout? What's kind of like the lifestyle revolving around raw milk for you guys?
Well, for us, it's going to be different because for a lot of people, because we've been, consuming raw milk for several years now, a lot of people are just getting introduced to it. Maybe it is a good idea to kind of slowly adapt yourself to it. Maybe put it in your tea or, put it in your cereal or whatever. I really, really like it for breaking fast, like you said. Especially in spring, summertime, having raw milk and fruit to break a fast to me is just, I never feel better than after that.
Heaven.
Yeah, that is heaven. Post workout, always awesome. During the winter, me and Tommy both, we like to try to put on as much muscle as we can because we're eating all these, fats and meats. We want to get big. We add a few more pounds of muscle. And so I like to consume it almost with every meal because of all, the protein that's in it. It's, that's an old strong man trick is some guys would drink like a gallon of milk a day. I'm not quite there, but having some of it with each meal to me during the winter is awesome.
Absolutely. And again, building off what Luke said, how it might be a little different for us is also because having cows, we're going to have a steady stream of raw milk that we have to put to use. So another thing is we're big, probably I think the top, the pinnacle of raw milk product in most people's eyes is the holy grail is raw butter. Is that golden, deep yellow raw butter, because you have to remember where the butter comes from is the straight cream from the milk, which is where a lot of the nutrients lie. And it's also the most satiating part of the milk. It's why it's such a satiating food, is because of that fat and that cream. And the butter just brings all of that out. So butter, whether you can buy it, or I know a lot of raw dairies will sell straight raw cream. So if maybe you buy the raw cream, you can play around with making your own butter. But that's probably also the biggest difference between homemade raw dairy products and store-bought ones. Even a bigger difference than drinking raw milk and store-bought milk. I have never, ever had store-bought butter that came close to the homemade raw butter. No one's been able to, even the Kerrygold, not to trash any company or anything, but we talked about this one time on our story. Everyone thinks that Kerrygold is like the cream of the crop, like, because it's kind of yellow, and it is for store-bought butter is pretty good, but it's kind of yellowish, and like, man, this is the best stuff. And trust me, that's not going to be your opinion if you've had the real stuff from a real farmer.
And that's another beautiful thing about the milk is it's a super diverse food. You can make it into yogurt, butter, ice cream, just drink the milk, whatever. And that's another thing about, being in touch with nature is a lot of stuff is going to be super diverse. You're going to use certain things for certain reasons. And raw milk just kind of personifies that very well.
Also, a very handy thing that any people listening might be able to walk away with as far as how to use it is plain and simple chocolate milk. An absolute favorite recipe of ours. I know you've tagged us in some stories of you making it. The way we make it personally is raw milk, some raw organic raw cacao powder, and then either local raw honey or maple syrup, one of the two of those. Figure out which ratio of each one you like the best. Just give it a quick blend. And man, that on the days where we do probably get close to drinking a gallon of raw milk a day, it's the raw chocolate milk that makes it easy because you can just down a lot of that stuff without even thinking about it. So that's a really user-friendly recipe that anyone who's not insane would love.
Yeah, and I think a key point, Luke, that you said is easing into it for a lot of people, because it's a very nutrient dense food that can be tough for people that maybe have lost their ability to break down lactose,
Yeah.
because we've really steered clear of milk for so long. So I always recommend when people getting onto raw milk, definitely start it slow so your body can redevelop those lactase enzymes to help you to break that down. And for me, I personally find that if I have about a gallon a week, that's kind of my sweet spot. If I do have more, I find that's a little bit too much for me. So my sweet spot is about a gallon a week. But that also depends on the person. And you guys are getting it directly from your own farms. Mine's only 20 minutes away, so it's not too far, but maybe it's been sitting on the shelf for 2 days, which isn't that long when you compare it to a grocery store. But when you're comparing it to you guys getting it fresh off the cow, that is a difference. So I think every body is different, like we were saying in the beginning. So I would say ease into it, play around with it. And like you're saying, there's a lot of different ways that we can make these things. And so, for me, one of my favorite recipes is I'll take the raw milk and I'll put some what's called MVP Sport Chocolate Protein in there by Purium, which is my favorite company. And so I put that in there. This is like post-workout. Put a little creatine in there, and I'll put a little, they just changed the name. I think it's called Biome Breakthrough. It used to be called Leaky Gut Guardian, which is basically like a probiotic. And it has some enzymes and has collagen and bovine collagen and bone broth powder in there too. So it's whip that up, dude, and maybe throw a little honey in there too. That is my post-workout. When I get home from the gym, I look forward to that every single time.
That is a superfood concoction. That'll definitely motivate you during your workout.
Oh yeah.
Work yourself as hard as you can to get all the benefits of that post-workout shack.
Yeah, man, I tell you, it's like having that. I actually, when we did our ice and iron men's retreat this summer, we brought some raw milk because a lot of the guys like they'd seen us talking about it and they're like, I want to try it. So we whipped those up for like after our hikes. And I don't know if there's not much better to recover from a workout from. And again, because you got digestive enzymes in there, you got probiotics in there, you got protein, a lot of different things in there. I find it really nourishing for the body, especially after a workout. So that's my favorite way. And I like, breaking the fast as well. And you mentioned the raw milk and fruit. I think one of my favorite things is in the summers having raw goat's milk and fruit. I think that we talked about this last time, like the goat's milk is just a little bit thinner. It's a little bit I think it's easier to digest to some degree. So I feel like that's really nice in the summer. So I moved further away from the goat farm, but I gotta get back on that game.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people, they make smoothies with the raw goat's milk.
Yes.
They want the benefits of the raw goat's milk, but maybe to some people, if the taste is a little too much for some people, I don't blame them with goat's milk. But if you can kind of mask that pungency with certain kinds of fruits, then you still get the benefits of the raw goat's milk and fruit.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's another one of my favorite recipes is thrown in a smoothie. So I'll do the raw milk, and usually I'm doing cow's milk for this because it's thicker, it gets that creamier. So I'll do bananas, blueberries, wild blueberries, the protein powder, same, the MVP Sport Chocolate Protein. Put a little peanut butter, a little honey in the raw milk, and that is a fire concoction too. So it's like I'm constantly playing around with different ways to use raw milk and just make it better because it's just the best.
There's definitely a spiritual component, especially here during the summers. Wild blackberries grow like crazy in Virginia. I mean, when you go out there, like primitive style, pick in your own blackberries and come back, have a bowl of blackberries and a tall glass of raw milk that you milked from your own cow. There's something beyond physical going on there that's it's nourishing your soul at the same time, man. It's hard to describe.
No, you're spot on because actually at this house that I'm renting right now, I was when I first moved in here was last April, and I remember looking around the yard. I was like, I'm pretty sure these are some sort of wild berries going on, and so the whole perimeter of the yard is wild black raspberries. So every morning I was going out there and getting like not a ton, but like 10 to 15 of them, like every single day for weeks, and it was so good.
The surge of energy that you get, especially from wild foods like that, is really crazy. I mean, I think last time we actually talked about, I remember you mentioning how there's a handful of foods that you had in your life that you instantly recognized, like a surge of energy. You mentioned liver, milk. I remember if the other one was kimchi or something. But I've had that same experience, especially with picking raw berries and things like that. Of course, it's great to buy the organic ones in the store or the locally grown ones. But when you're out there,
It's wild.
out in the wild, barefoot, picking your old berries, you can see how people really did sustain themselves on much less. Maybe they only had 10 or 15 berries for most of the day, but the energy you get from that is pretty unreal.
Amen. And that kind of final thoughts. We can keep going down these fun rabbit holes.
So many
But
rabbit holes.
but on on those mornings, it was the same thing because this is this will now be my second year at this house that we're at now. But it was I had the small garden going, so I maybe get a couple green beans, maybe get a couple snap peas, couple heads of not heads of lettuce, leaves of lettuce or something, and then the berries. And I was like, I felt great. That was like my mini breakfast. And for somebody who usually consumes a large breakfast, like it was really amazing to see how I didn't feel hungry. Like I had the energy I needed because these foods were just so full of nutrition. And granted, the soil, I put a lot of good stuff in the soil. So the foods
Yeah.
are being made right. But yeah, like you said, we can survive off a lot less sometimes.
And that feeling is accessible to most people. Most people could have a garden.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, even just one plant. Um, I mean, just a couple tomato plants and pepper plants, like those are pretty low maintenance.
Yeah.
And I just think about the difference it would make in the world if everyone started their day walking out barefoot to their garden and just grab a few tomatoes, few peppers, even just something that small.
Yep.
Would make such a huge difference in most people's lives.
Mhm.
And everyone who starts a garden, that's the first thing they say. They love the taste and everything, and they love, not having to go out to the grocery store and buy it. But the act of picking it and then cooking it yourself, that is the number one reason why most people love their gardens. And it's accessible. Most people have the land for it too. They just don't do it.
Spiritual experience, like you're saying, it's beyond physical. So that's why I made my free ebook. Yes, you can grow your own food. So
Yeah.
Anybody listening here, if you haven't downloaded that, I'll put the link in there, but it's just bit.ly/grow food ebook, so you can download that for free. And again, we're gonna get these people growing food, getting raw milk. And where can people follow along with what you guys are doing, get some of the nice merch you guys got going on? What's the next steps for people?
So find us on Instagram at Raw Milk and Deadlifts for sure. That's primarily where we hang out. We also just launched our site, which is rawmilkanddeadlifts.com, all spelled out. You can join our newsletter there and get a discount on the merch if you decide to do that. And we also just started a Telegram channel for anyone who's into that. Anyone who thinks censorship is for weenies, find us on Telegram, which is actually you can find the Telegram through our Instagram if you go there. So those are three of the main ways where you'll find the Armad boys and the Armad merch.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. I appreciate you guys being here today. Everybody listening, check out what they got going on. I will put those links in the description box as well. So check it out, give them a follow, check out the website, see what they got going on. I got my hat, I got my shirt, so I'm all Armad up. So
Part of the tribe, brother. We
part of the
appreciate it.
tribe. All right, everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Whole Health of Rob Carney podcast with my friends from Raw Milk and Deadlifts. Like I mentioned, I will put all the links in the description box in there for you to check out their stuff, support them, and just continue to support small businesses. That's where Whole Health Connections, Raw Milk and Deadlifts, just a couple of small businesses doing the best we can. And obviously we're big proponents of supporting local economy, supporting small businesses. So if you are looking to improve the quality of your nutrition, look for some local farmers, grow your own food. Obviously that's a big passion of mine. And I mentioned in the podcast earlier, the link to the Yes You Can Grow Your Own Food ebook will be in the description box as well, or you can just go to bit.ly/grow food ebook, all lowercase. And also we have the Purium Superfood Nutrition. That is a fantastic way to support the cause. Supports me. I'm an affiliate of the company, so I do get some kickback on there, and that really helps me to keep this podcast going. And hands down, they are my favorite superfood company I've ever come in contact with. They're going plastic free this year, which is a big part of what really attracted me to this company in the first place. The fact that they're using biodegradable hemp packaging, I can throw them in the compost. And here we are. I just checked it out in the spring, and now from everything I put in the fall, it's now gone. It's composted into the ground in my little compost pile out there. So you can go to iShopPurium.com, check out all the great stuff they have, from performance to recovery, detox, sleep, you name it, and use the discount code WHOLEHEALTH. That will save you $50 off your first order of $75 or more. And if you sign up for what's called a SMART order, which is a monthly recurring order, you will save 25% every single month and get double rewards points towards your future purchases. So again, you go to iShopPurium.com, use the discount code WHOLEHEALTH, or you can check out the link in the description box here. And that helps us keep it going, keep it growing, keep it flowing. So thank you for listening. Appreciate you. Have the best day ever, and I'll talk to you soon.